After the Second World War, there was an enormous shortage of materials and of fuel, and this led to the phenomenon of bubble cars. This one here is an Italian model designed by ISO, which was called an Isetta. It was actually designed for the Italian market, but a struggling BMW in Germany took the rights to this and put their own motorcycle engines in it. They were 250cc, and this was vital to their maintenance of business until they could develop big models. They even manufactured them in England at a deserted railway buildings in Brighton. Apparently, all the supplies had to come by railway, and all the workers had to trudge 100 steps to work. Nearly 25 years later, BMW again looked to Italy, but this time for another kind of inspiration. On the race circuits, their CLSs had begun to age, and the Group 6 racing had become so extreme they were really virtually F1 cars with 2 seats in them. Group 5 was a more interesting prospect for them. It was called the Silhouette Formula, and the basis of that was that you could do nearly anything with it, providing the silhouette of the car looked like a road car. Well, that was fine. They had a fine engine. They had the 6, which had a 3.5 straight engine, but they didn't have a body. There had been a 1972 exhibition car, which was called a dream car, which they had shown around the circuits. And they had decided to take that to Lamborghini, who were experts in specialist cars, to see if a production car could be born out of it. However, Lamborghini too were having trouble, and they couldn't pay their bills. So in the end, BMW had to take production back themselves. Now, the delay caused enormous embarrassment to BMW and actually allowed the Group 5 racing to be dominated by Porsche with their 935s. As a result, BMW were really in a bit of a corner. What they did was to create their own one-make series. Many say the greatest one-make race series ever. It ran in all the European circuits alongside the Grand Prix, and it was called the Pro Car. It created champions with Niki Lauda and Nelson Piquet, but it only ran for the 2 years. Then BMW really could do little else, and they stepped back into the shadows and left us with just a handful of beautiful, true supercars. That was the BMW M1. The heart of this beast is under here. It is a beautiful 3.5, 4-valve per cylinder, straight 6, one of BMW's finest machines. It uses a light alloy head, and it has a dry sump, which allows a much lower profile within the chassis and therefore makes the whole body that much more slippery. The exhausts have been sculpted and moved as far as possible away from the heads to try and keep cooling, which is always a problem with mid-engine cars. And their crank itself is even forged in steel so as to make sure everything is perfect. There is, just for a bonus, chain drives that give you an extra soundtrack when you change down and power away. The body itself is designed by Ital. It is full of lovely design codes, these louvres which do a job both for the passage of air and to keep the sun from this window. The body itself is very simple and was from time to time criticized for not being flamboyant like Lamborghini's, but that is BMW's style. You can tell what's going on. The P7s on the back are bigger than the ones on the front, which gives you a clue of performance. The suspension is all wishbone, which is what you'd expect of a race-proven car. And little details like this, the vent for the back of the radiator with that very, very famous badge, the BMW. The interior is pretty much what you'd expect. It's the high qualities of the time, and it's full of the nice trim and all the details you could want. BMW tell me that all the dials are original and dedicated just to this car, and certainly they're all written in German, which would be compliant with the fact they only made those in that factory. The overriding feel here is of sitting very far forward, which is similar to the F1 cars of the day. The straight six engine behind us really does take up half the car. So you are sat very close to the wheel and quite close to the head. It's a compact feeling made worse by the very wide tunnel here and the curves to the window, so that you are very isolated from your partner, but very close to all the machinery behind you. It's a very exciting car to drive, but it's actually quite docile, and providing you're sensible with it, you can do long journeys easily. Probably the hardest thing is the gearbox. Where you'd expect first is reverse, and first itself is a dog leg down, which you then have to cross up into second, which is fine, but the clutch itself is a double plated and it's very heavy, and you come a long way up before you engage. So to be a good driver, you have to practice this thing quite a lot. Let's try. The car is actually something of a Jekyll and Hyde, because if you're driving in a higher gear, the engine's remarkably docile, as anyone with a big engine, the BMW, will tell you. It's quite a decent ride. The visibility from the front is actually quite good. It's needless to say dreadful from the rear quarters, and out the back it's just a matter of luck if you spot anything. The clutch is very hard and the travel is very long, so you do have to get the rhythm. But once you have, it really is exciting. You could question whether this is just a BMW poser's car, but the answer is very simple. All you have to do is change down a gear and sneak those cams past 3,500 revs, just as we are now, and it comes alive. You really then have to be a skillful driver. You can reach 50 miles an hour in first, you can be illegal in second, and you can go past or thereabout a ton in third. Top speed's about 160, but realistically the joy is really in the driving, like they say in the ads, and this seriously is a driver's car. Just listen. There are thought to be just 20 of these cars in the UK. This one is the factory's own pride and joy. Had luck not run against them all those years ago, the next step was going to be a V12 5 litre. In the end, it did appear. It was in the McLaren F1.